that's known to the inquiry is about a weekly meeting on the 21st of November 1995. So does that ring true that he was in the group from about that time?
Yeah.
And at the time, was he getting to know people and fitting in the same way that perhaps you were?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time ago, so I don't have precise memories, but I would expect that me and my boyfriend at the time would have represented safe people to get to know. So you're fitting in the edges and finding your way in. Like, there's a little story to illustrate that. So once we were picked up on the way to the Newbury Road protest, just as it was getting dark from a service station, we were hitching. And the guy said, I wouldn't normally pick people up at this time, but you two look so harmless that I thought I'd pick you up. So it's kind of like that. So I think, I don't know, I don't have precise memories, but I can project that we were good entry points.
You describe yourself in your witness statement as one of the first points of contact for Boiling when you joined the group.
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah, it was someone that I probably felt safe talking to, and I kind of, yeah.
And what was your impression of him?
It's difficult to know, because like, these things are quite subtle as well. When you feel safe, for me, in someone's company, it's just like, oh, yeah, you know. So you don't. So I think I probably felt comfortable talking to him.
Was he single at the time?
I didn't know. I didn't ask.
Was he well liked amongst the group?
I don't remember, to be honest. He was just somebody I knew from the beginning to. There's other people I could remember that I knew at that time. So it, like, I'd be saying more than I actually remember if I was to say. He was there and I knew him.
I'd like to ask you about relationships generally within the RTS group. You say that Jim or Boiling met you with your boyfriend at the outset, and would he have known that you were in a relationship with your boyfriend? And others knew that? They knew as a couple, did they?
Yeah.
And how usual or unusual was monogamy in relationships in the group at that time?
It wasn't something Reclaim the Streets, as far as I know, ever discussed. If we're talking about Reclaim the Streets, it wasn't a thing. It wasn't an issue. I think generally you assume people in a relationship are monogamous. And there are groups of people that I knew at the time later on that were quite good at polyamory or that kind of thing. But it wasn't like a normal thing. It wasn't a free love commune or anything like that. It was just some people in certain were kind of more free, but I think most people were just more like, yeah.
How usual was it for people to be in sexual relationships with others in the group?
I think it was probably a cross-section of normal society, really, in relation to that. I mean, I turned up with this person because I'd come to London and we were in a relationship, but it wasn't something that, I don't think it was massively normal. It was occasional. It wasn't like lots of everyone in, like, a lot of individuals came to Reclaim the Streets. So,
did you have a sense of how many people within the group might have relationships with people outside the group that had nothing to do with the group?
Yeah, I think that you would assume that, that people, and I wouldn't necessarily ask people about that kind of thing. I kind of tend to wait for people to tell me things, do you know what I mean, about themselves. So, yeah, that wouldn't have been an issue at all. Like, thinking about the people that I knew at the beginning of that time, yeah, I wouldn't have thought anything if they had a partner or if they suddenly said one day, oh, yeah, that's my partner I'm meeting on, because the meetings were one day a week.
So is it fair to say that not everybody was necessarily aware of everybody's sex lives in the group?
Massively. Yeah, it was an open meeting. Anyone could turn up to Reclaim the Streets. It wasn't like a closed-knit group like that. It was open.
And were single people less accepted or trusted within the group?
No. No.
Was there anything riding on the sexual relationships that people had that would determine how involved you were in the actions taken by RTS?
No.
When you first started attending the RTS meetings and you attended with your boyfriend, was he already a trusted person within the RTS group?
Reclaim the Streets, as you will probably come into, it's like, yeah, he had been around for a while. He'd been involved in the first two Reclaim the Streets street parties. Yeah, so he was someone who, this word trusted is complex. So
did he help you integrate more quickly than if you'd have turned up on your own, perhaps?
yeah, because for me, if I wouldn't have turned up on my own, to be honest, it wouldn't have happened. But
okay.
yeah, so being with him was like my way into that world.
And had you turned up with a friend, non-romantic relationship, with somebody who was already within the group, would that have made a difference? The fact that you weren't in a sexual relationship, did that make a difference at all?
No.
Would it have, my question really is, would it have
just
been harder for you to integrate and be involved in the activities?
So I have watched The Traitors, and when you think there's the police there might be plainclothes policemen at your meeting, or people who, so you're suspicious of outsiders on some level, or you wait a little bit. There's levels of trust, isn't there? But there's the first trust area. So I think when people are a bit weird or a bit not outside the normal, they tend to get suspicion more than the people who aren't. So they're coming with someone that you knew to a Reclaim the Streets meeting, was already there, was probably helpful, because it's a sense of that these people can be trusted. Do you understand what I mean? Because we were aware that plainclothes policemen might attend our meetings on a regular basis, so people would have a suspicion of maybe who they would be. So if you came with someone you knew,
it's almost like a stamp
already
of approval.
like as an introduction, then that would give you a little bit more credence if you just turned up. But it wasn't. It was a human thing, not a, yeah.
When you broke up with your boyfriend in July 1996, you say you stayed close with him thereafter. Did the change in your relationship status impact on your work in the RTS?
No.
Nobody became suspicious of the fact that you were single?
No.
And was that any different for a single man in the group?
No.
We've heard from a number of UCOs in this inquiry that it was not sustainable to remain single and effectively infiltrate a group. What do you say about that in terms of what you've experienced?
I think it's a tactic for a reason. But I think there obviously are other options. They don't probably have so many benefits that one might have. Like the options have been discussed already at the inquiry, haven't they? The options to not have sex with people who think you're somebody else. I think humans want to trust each other. And groups like Reclaim the Streets, at the most central part relied on trust, relied on commitment, being on the same page, wanting to have the same discussions, wanting to raise the same issues that we felt were being ignored by the society which we lived in at our peril. So we wanted to address those by making a statement that might get the things we were campaigning about some interest. So does that make sense in relation to the question? I think you could not have a relationship and still be a trusted member of Reclaim the Streets. Well, not member, but person.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask you a bit about Reclaim the Streets and the purpose? You've already touched on that already about highlighting some of the problems with the society that you were in, but you address it in some detail in your witness statement, and you say that RTS aimed to highlight the negative impacts of car culture. That was one of the objectives. And it was a group that felt direct action was the only way of getting attention within the existing political structures, and we were seeking positive social change. Does that reflect generally what RTS was about?
Okay. So Reclaim the Streets was part of a wider story. So Reclaim the Streets began just before the M11 protests. So there was an M11, there was the road, the M11 was built through Leytonstone, and it was demolished lots of houses. And obviously this was towards the beginning, well, not the beginning, but like the highlighting the effect that fossil fuels were having on the environment and the climate change. So it seemed that if you wanted to consider the effects of climate change, that it would be good to reduce car use, to really address one of the major causes. And also the relationship of humans of dominating and owning the environment and thinking it's theirs to do what they will with. So here's an ancient forest, let's chop it down. Here's Twyford Down, this ancient site. Let's build a road straight through it. Those things, to the people who were brought to that feeling, were things that shouldn't be done that straightforwardly. These were special places. Sometimes they were sacred places. And also they went through communities, like in the M11 in Leytonstone. So there was a desire to address the dominant paradigm of capitalism, consume, duh. And so these movements arose from that. So Reclaim the Streets had begun to address I think in London, and encourage cycling and that kind of thing, using different forms of transport. But that kind of got subsumed in the greater M11 protest. And then when that was over, Reclaim the Streets started up. But there was also the road protests in Stanworth Valley in Blackburn, in Newbury, in Twyford Down. So there was a movement in some level. And Reclaim the Streets was part of that. So, The
SDS annual report of 95-96 describes it like this. It may be worth just getting this up on the screen. It's MPS 0728967, page 9, about halfway down the page. And it says, RTS is a group of extremists with the potential and the ambition to cause serious disorder and disruption in London and elsewhere in pursuit of their primary belief that the motor car is evil and their subsidiary belief that big business, the establishment, etc., is also evil. Do you agree with that SDS description of RTS?
Reclaim the Streets are the work of the devil. It's like, I mean, the language is ridiculous. It's not designed to understand what Reclaim the Streets is about. It's an attempt to demonise it.
You've said already that the meetings that RTS had were open meetings. Anybody could attend.
Yeah.
And anybody who wanted to become involved could become involved in different actions. And you say that during your time at the RTS, the structure and the key organisers changed based on who was most up for doing and organising particular actions. Is that right?
I think Reclaim the Streets in many ways was an umbrella group for people to take action. So it encouraged other people to do things. Well, not it, because that was the nature. There was an interesting group of people who worked really well together that had a lot of creativity and inspiration. And those things often are hard to replicate. But the encouragement from those people were always to do replication. So Reclaim the Streets parties, street parties, where you take over a space that's often divided, people are divided by the car, and you create a different place where different things are possible. There's banners, there's a sandpit, there's decorations, people are connecting to each other, people are talking. That's an expression of something that's different, some way of living that's different. And so they went on in lots of different places.
We're going to come to some of those specifically as well, because I'd like to take you to some of the particular intelligence reports on those street parties. Your key area of interest, was that the environment and reduction of fossil fuel, and for society to embrace an environmentally sound way of being involved in the world in general?
Yeah.
You say that you became more consumed in environmental activism. Did that take on a significant role in your life?
Yeah, it did.
You lived in a repurposed empty house, commonly known as a squat, I think.
Did.
And that was in Hackney, in North London, with other environmentally minded people.
Yeah, yes.
Not all of whom were involved in RTS.
No.
Can I ask you about some specific actions that took place? You say that at paragraph 2.3 of your witness statement, the group discussed issues for possible direct action, suitable causes to support, share and publicise actions that they were involved with. What do you mean by direct action?
Okay. So within the society, there's certain straightforward ways of protesting, like going on a demonstration. These are considered legitimate. But then they don't have a lot of power to increase debate, raise issues. They're very good to be ignored, very good at ignoring them. And particularly with how the press is in this country as well, it's hard to get attention. And also when somebody's destroying a piece of nature or destroying something that you care about, you would take direct action. You would put yourself between that destruction or thing in order to create change. So in a way, direct action is about taking that into a more focused form in order to disrupt things that you feel are not benefiting or good. It's a way of raising a voice, and sometimes it's necessary because the status quo carries on, and anything... There's an author who describes modernity as a play, and there's a massive audience, and modernity carries on, and sometimes people debate, oh, it should be this way or it should be that way. But most of the people are in the audience, and they don't get a voice, they don't get a part on the stage. And some people are totally blacked out. The corner don't really exist. It's a bit like that. So for people where those things aren't being discussed, you kind of have to step forward to take action. It's the only thing that's really left to you. And in some parts of the world, it results in death.
So a recognised form of protest or demonstration, to what extent would that involve criminal activity?
Some direct action does involve criminal... I mean, like subvertising, that's criminal damage, isn't it? If you write something on a billboard, that would be a low level. It's... I don't really know what to say about that. Ideally not. And is it criminal damage to glue your hand to a building? Probably. But it's also a way of making a statement.
What about public disorder? Was that necessary to raise awareness?
So we come back to the description of Reclaim the Streets as evil. Yeah? So a Reclaim the Streets party could be considered as public disorder because it does create disorder of cars. It's trying to attract attention to a very salient issue in our society, how cars divide people from each other. But it's also an event. It's also something that's trying to express something different. It's trying to express another way of being in the world. And I think that's really key to what Reclaim the Streets was about fundamentally. It's very difficult to change this world. And so there's not a perfect science to it. In fact, it's pretty impossible. But Reclaim the Streets, that desire for the street party was to create a different narrative and to create a different experience of what a road could be, you know, and how roads enclosed people and separated people, how hard it is for someone to cross a 6-lane road, you know, that kind of thing. So you could call that public disorder, but you could also call it an expression of something else. In a way, it's a little bit of both.
Thank you. I've just been asked to clarify with you if you are comfortable with saying that you lived in Hackney.
I don't think it matters that much. So if it's okay, that's fine.
Going back to this issue of public disorder, Boiling in his witness statement, which we don't need to bring up, but he says that RTS actions usually resulted in public disorder. The group's tactic was to hold street parties, blockade roads with vehicles and scaffolding structures, tripods. Damaging vehicles and smashing windows was common. Do you recognise that? Is that something you would say did happen?
Reclaim the Streets was fundamentally situationist in many ways, so it wanted to create a spectacle. Something that changed the normal reality. So they would, and Boiling did, from what I know, actually buy one of these cars at one point, but create a little car crash, because that would serve to block the road. So two people rent old bangers, slightly have a crash, and then a sound system comes out from nowhere, the music starts playing, there's people on tripods blocking the other end of the road, people come and hang banners between the lampposts and get a sand pit for the children to play in, and all the people who've come to the place have a party and celebrate being alive together. That does block a road, that does stop traffic moving, so the normal system gets broken a little bit, but there's this other event in the middle of it. That's what Reclaim the Streets was about.
Was there ever communication with police about plans for a big demo or action in preparation for an event, or was that an absolute no-no?
There was definitely police liaison, but the idea of where the street party was to take place was a secret in order to allow it to happen.
Publication. So did you publicise these events?
Yes, so there would be a meeting point publicised and people would arrive at the meeting point.
And would that be publicised to the group, affiliated groups, or more publicly?
The meeting point
available?
was known to everybody. Okay. It wasn't a secret.
You've already said that you were aware of police surveillance on the group, and that could be in the form of an undercover police officer attending an open meeting. Mm-hmm. Was there any other form of surveillance that you were aware of?
No, sorry.
I'd like to ask about your friendship with Jim first. When you first met him, towards the end of 1995, beginning of 1996, who was it that first made the introduction? Can you remember that kind of detail?
No.
You say in your witness statement that it probably would have been him that started the conversation.
I would think so, yeah, knowing how I was, yeah.
And you say at paragraph 3.3 that he expressed an interest in you. Can I ask you, what do you mean by that? Do you mean just asking about your life, about topics, or a romantic interest?
I don't know if I can honestly say more about that. Because you get to know people step by step, don't you? Like, so in my work, I'm a carer, and when I first go into someone else's home, I know them a little bit, but the second time I know them a bit more, and the third time. So I think it works like that. So he was somebody that I must have felt comfortable talking to, or that would have increased over time. But that's, to be honest, honestly, as I can say, it's a long time ago, and I don't remember precisely how it unfolded, but I would imagine it was like that, because he started to feel like somebody I knew and that it was okay to talk to.
You say that between January and October 1996, you got to know Boiling better. You would go to pubs after the meetings, and he made you feel comfortable and safe. And you also reference mirroring skills. The inquiry recognises this is similar to the experiences of other deceived women, this sense of mirroring. Do you want to explain a little bit more about that?
Okay.
And how you experienced that?
Well, I can't really do it in that exact way, but I think mirroring is about making people feel safe, making people, it's like with AI, it's like certain things where they look at humans, that if you give them a couple of strokes, like say things complimentary or certain things, then they start to feel more comfortable. And I think the mirroring techniques with that, I didn't feel comfortable with most people. Yeah, I felt comfortable with Jim. So I think that's, in a way, what I'm saying. I think he was probably behaving in ways that he'd been trained and wanting people to feel comfortable and safe with him. So I did. Because it was more rare for me to feel comfortable with people than it was. Does that make sense?
Were you sharing intimate information about each other, just about your lives?
No, I think we were probably just chatting about the meeting and having a laugh and just talking. Yeah, I don't think it was like, yeah. He was somebody that I hung out with in the pub after, someone that I talked to, someone I felt safe with. I can't really say more than that.
Did you seem to have much in common with him?
Well, we had Reclaim the Streets and our activism. We had why we went to meetings every week. That's what we had in common. That's the commonality of the movement. It's like that sense that you could be at the Newbury Road protest camp and you chat to somebody who was also at Newbury. You had something in common. That was your bond.
And what did he tell you about himself?
Not a lot. But I knew that he worked. I knew that he was Jim. I tend not to ask prying questions too much. I tend to wait for people to tell me things.
Did you understand he was around 30, early 30s?
Yeah.
There's about a 5-year age gap between you both. Self-employed?
Yeah. Or employed with a van.
And that was why he needed the van, was it?
Yeah.
Was it to do with house clearances or building work?
To be honest, I thought it was more building work. Since disclosure about this, I found out but I thought he just did stuff like trades kind of thing.
And did the use of that van come in handy in terms of gathering information on the group?
Surprisingly so, yeah. Well, no one had, we all cycled everywhere, so nobody had a van. And he offered to give people lifts back. So, yeah.
And during those lifts, conversations would be had, or he would be able to get to know more about people and what was going on in the group.
I mean, this occurred in our relationship, but I think I put it in my statement. There was one time, because I was always paranoid that people were talking about me, and we got out the van at the end of him dropping everyone off at his flat, and he's laughing, he's going, "No, you're talking about in the van, you didn't realise." because he was obviously listening to every word, and I just sat staring out the window. And but he, and he thought it was quite funny, which in a way it was.
What about his family background? Did he tell you that he was adopted?
This was only really when we were in a relationship, but yes, he told me he was adopted, and he didn't want to know who his parents were, which I thought was strange.
Anything more about his family background?
Not really. I don't think I necessarily asked a lot. I mean, he told me a story about, I've put in my statement, but yeah, it's...
Okay. At that time, in early 1996, your mother was ill. Is that right?
Yeah.
And she died in April 1996.
Yeah.
And you were obviously very young to lose your mother at that time. Do you remember if you spent time with Jim around that stage? Was he aware of that?
I don't know, because that was in 1996. So at the time of my mother's dying and death, I was mostly... I went to Reclaim the Street meeting, but I was at Newbury Road protest in the tree camps, and I was also with my boyfriend I turned up with. So that was a very deep experience for both of us, really. Yeah. So I think at that time, I mean, people would have known, I think.
So your friends within the group would have known what you were going through, would they?
It's difficult to remember precisely. She became ill in the February and she died in the April. And it was 30 years ago this year. And so the Newbury bypass protests, which were really significant media-wise and the biggest protests, they started in the January. And so I know I was arrested for obstruction of the sheriff being evicted from the road protest camp. I think, just after my mother died, I think.
Okay. I'd like to ask you about some of the actions through RTS that you were involved with and Boiling was also involved with. So the first one, which I think we'll be able to look at before we go to the mid-morning break, is at behind tab B2, MPS 0246485. And this is an action from the 13th of June 1996. It's a street party at the M41 street party at Shepherd's Bush.
July.
Oh, sorry, did I say June? 13th of July 1996. So that's MPS 0246485.
Is it?
It should be coming up on the screen.
It's not there yet.
Shortly. What you say about this, you address it at paragraph 3.6 of your witness statement, and you say at that time Jim Boiling had a similar status to you in RTS. So this is within about 6 or 7 months of him joining. You were both trusted to be given need-to-know information before an event, but that would have been different for each of you, depending on what your role was within the action. Is that right?
Yeah, so I didn't know what he was doing, and I didn't ask.
Okay. Did you understand that he drove the organiser, or one of the organisers, around in the van to do a recce around the proposed site?
Only after, when we were in a relationship, he told me that story.
And your role was to paint banners, contributed to the decor of the event. We can see here, it's now up on the screen in front of you, it should be.
Yeah.
So it's the one behind tab B2. Just check this. MPS 0246485. Effectively, this was it. Hopefully. Effectively, it was a big roadblock party with about 5,000 people attending. Is that right?
It was big. I don't know how many people.
Effectively, you blocked the motorway, and as you've said, sandpits, banners, a music system put in place, dug holes in the road.
I didn't know about that at the time, but I knew about it after, not.
An attempt to plant trees.
It was a situationist thing, so it was like a piece of theatre.
A bit of publicity for the group.
No, it wasn't about publicity for the group. That was an after effect of it. It was about trying to raise issues about car culture, fossil fuel use, climate change, the oppression of nature, for capitalism and for consumerism and for greed. Effectively,
as you say, the traffic was blocked.
Yeah.
What happened to the traffic? Was it diverted around?
I unfortunately was in the space that wasn't being obstructed, so I'm sure it was really frustrating for people who had things to do that day, which is always the downside of these things. Obviously, this became a bigger thing with Extinction Rebellion later, but it was about that space. It was about changing the use of the space and creating an event that brought people together.
The report, as the header, talks about it's listed disorder, just minor incidents.
I think at any event like this, I think Reclaim the Streets, they had police liaison. So when we were leaving the place with the banners in the morning, these two policemen came along and said, "Oh, we're going to be fluffy, they're not spiky today." And we were like, whatever. They did try to stop the road protest. They did try to stop it. They had the people from the sound system in cuffs, but then people came from 3 different directions, and they stepped back, and they allowed the party to proceed and manage the public order event.
So when you say that the police said to you, "We're going to be fluffy, not spiky," that's as you were leaving King's Cross, where you'd made the banners, stored the banners. And what did you understand that to mean?
They weren't going to hit us over the head with a truncheon.
So not aggressive policing.
I think if they felt they had stopped the party from happening, I'm not sure that the policing might not have been aggressive to keep us off the streets at that point, but once the party was happening and once the sound system or the people were on the motorway, then I think that was their response, was to be okay at that point. They were going to do everything they could to stop it because they knew the location, because Jim knew the location. But if they couldn't stop it, they were going to let it go ahead.
The mood in the report is described as jubilant. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, there was a period where the police line was, the tripods are used to block the road, so the tripods would be up the other side of the police line, and I found that quite distressing because I was worried about the people on the tripods. And so there were people at the police line, and then there was negotiations, I think, going on about bringing the people on the tripods into the party. So there was a point where I was at the police line, lots of other people were, and the police line started to move back, and the crowd started to shout, "Power to the people," and everyone kind of joined in with us. We went, "Power to the people." And then there was another point when I walked away from that place, and there was a woman in a lovely dress, and she was playing a cello and singing Amazing Grace, and there was this policeman smiling and joining in with her. And it was a really precious moment because it showed how things could shift and showed how commonality could arise, even if it was just a policy of the day. It was something that has always stayed with me. It's very beautiful and meaningful.
And the sense from that day was that it was a successful day.
Yeah.
So that may be an appropriate moment now to break for the mid-morning break.
Certainly. We break 15 minutes so that the shorthand writers can have a rest, and indeed you can as well.
Thank you.
We'll resume in 15 minutes.
Thank you. Moving to August 1996 now, on the 5th of August, there was an action against Pinkerton's Security, and that was in Richmond, and they were, at the time, providing security to the Newbury bypass. Do you recall that?
Yes.
You were involved in organising that action, is that right?
Kind of.
And you were there on the night before at the Richmond Green Cafe to have a meeting and to plan the action on the following day on the 5th. Is that right?
Yeah, it was like a gathering point and then people could stay over. So I think what had happened was me and this other activist had gone to the Reclaim the Streets meeting. So Reclaim the Streets meeting was an open meeting where you could say, we're doing this, come along. That was a good way of getting people together to go. So I think we'd done that, and then we're going to be here in the evening, and then we can stay over if we want, and then we go straight to the action.
Okay. And Boiling was one of the people that came that evening for the
Which surprised me, to be honest. I was a bit like, oh. Because I think I knew him, but I didn't know him that, you know what I mean? It's like, I was surprised he turned up, let's just say that.
And you describe in your witness statement that he was very focused on what the plan was, how to get into the building.
Yeah, he wanted to know what the plan was. He got really irritated that we didn't have a plan, and he stormed out.
You say you didn't have a plan, but presumably you were going to turn up at the building at some point the following day.
So I found his what's the plan a bit, like, to my mind, at the time, a bit, like, confusing. Like, well, the plan is we're going to turn up and hopefully they don't know we're coming. Do you know what I mean? And then an office, you would expect an office wouldn't have security at the door so much. It would just be a normal office in Richmond. So, yeah, I was a bit perplexed by it.
Was the intention to go into the building?
It was to occupy the office and make a bit of a song and dance.
And Boiling becoming angry and irritated, did he storm out, did you say?
Yeah.
How did that affect you?
It really affected me. I think some of the things we talked about earlier, I think I took it as a personal rejection. There's something wrong. I've not done something that I should be doing, and I'm responsible, and I've got to make this work, and I've got to make. So I think there was that bubbling up, and I felt very what's the word? Well, out of sorts. So after that, I was I was very anxious and agitated.
You described not being able to eat breakfast the following morning. Were you quite stressed about the whole situation?
Yeah, I just felt sick. I had nausea.
What impact, if any, did his behaviour have on the action and how that took place?
I think it dysregulated me, and I think I kind of was taking it too seriously. It was down to me to make it work, to fit in, be safe. Do you know what I mean? I don't know really what was happening. I just know that. And I was just trying to
Ultimately, when you got to the building, you were entering the building and a female employee grabbed hold of you and pushed you back. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you responded by pushing her back as well?
Yeah, I think I got into a little tussle because I wanted to get in the building, because that was, we don't have a plan to get in the building, so I wanted to make it work.
And is it right that the police were immediately on the scene?
Yeah.
And you were arrested for ABH, was it, actual bodily harm?
Yeah.
You pleaded guilty to using violence to enter a premises, is that right?
Yeah, because I was in the police interview, I'd admitted that I didn't think the police wanted, the office people wanted us in the building, and I had touched the woman, like she grabbed me by my arms and I tussled back. My dress was ripped. I know that when I was in a police station. But yeah, so that made me guilty of both of those offences. So I had to accept one of them on my record. Okay. Which, yeah.
And how has that impacted you since?
Well, every job that only recently my DBS came back and it wasn't, I don't have any things on them. It's the first time. So, so I have that offence on my DBS, and so I have to explain it to every, like, when I did my social work training or those kind of things, I had to explain what that was about.
Do you advocate violence as part of protest?
I've been thinking about this recently, personally. No, I don't. I think it's not whether I advocate violence, but I don't think you can create positive change with violence. I think the only way we can really change ourselves is if we learn to live in peace. But I think that takes a hell of a lot of effort and commitment as a species to find a way to do that. But in the political, violence exists everywhere in our society. It's how it operates in many ways.
Do you have any sense of why the police were there so quickly on that day?
Not at the time. I was just like a rabbit in the headlights at the time. But obviously, come disclosure, come Boyling's true identity, then you start to question everything, don't you? And suddenly things start to make more sense, but other things make a lot less sense.
There's an up-to-date and information pro forma in relation to you behind tab B4 at MPS 0246565, which should be up on the screen in front of you. And can you see at the end of paragraph 1, in relation to you, it reads, she was arrested in Richmond on the 5th of August for assaulting an employee of Pinkerton Security and attempted office occupation.
Uh-huh.
So that's on a report specifically in relation to you. You've seen that report, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
And in terms of the accuracy of that report, that's accurate, is it?
Well, it's accurate, but it doesn't say, Detective Jim Boyling attended the meeting and stormed out because the useless activist didn't have a plan. It doesn't say that. But yes, that first bit is true.
You raise an issue with the description of the squat as squalid.
Yeah, and also I don't know which... That sentence, I have given my solicitor that back. It's like... Says, are now residing at the above address, which is even more squalid than the usual squat near. I don't know what address that is even referring to, and I'd love to know. Because I actually had a rental house at some point when I was living in Hackney.
If you look at the privacy checklist that you should have on the desk in front of you, 3 boxes up from the bottom, there's the reference MPS 0246565. And you see the name there, not to say the name. Does that help you at all in relation to that?
No, I've really tried to figure it out because, it's just offensive anyway, but the homes I lived in that were squats weren't squalid, but anyway. Doesn't matter.
Boyling doesn't appear to have reported on the planning meeting, as you say, for the Pinkertons action, nor the actual event. But he had previously reported on a plan to demonstrate at Surbiton train station on the 5th of August, 96 at 5 a.m. And the report in relation to that is behind B3, MPS 0246520. And it's a report from the 2nd of August, 96. The report states that you were to be involved in this demonstration at Surbiton, but you refute that. Is that right?
Yeah, I can't make head or tail of these 2 reports and the dates. And obviously my memory of that time isn't perfect. It's not selective, but it isn't perfect. But yeah, so I can't actually make head or tail of that. I don't know. It's kind of a question not for me, really. I don't know.
in the source comment, it does say that it's possible that the RTS intelligence may be inaccurate on this occasion. Road Alert are already focusing their attention on Pinkerton Security, who will be handling the main contract, and the South London Action Group, who previously ran a source within the security company and disrupted previous collections from Tooting Broadway tube station, do not appear to be involved here. Does that help?
Yeah, that does, and I don't think that was disclosed. I don't remember that bit being disclosed to me, because that, unless I just missed it, that makes more sense. Because that Road Alert, I think, is more connected with the Newbury bypass, and this was about the Newbury bypass, whereas we were like doing a Reclaim the Streets sort of support action of that. So that may make some sense now.
So the fact that the security was being provided by Pinkertons, that may have
it's
changed
the Road Alert
attention. Okay.
that makes me think that that would make some sense.
Okay. There's a special branch report on RTS behind tab B5, MPS 0246569. And it's paragraph 2 that is of interest. Halfway down that paragraph, there's a reference to Reclaim the Future March on the 28th of September. And the Advance Party and Freedom Network were unhappy with the restrictions placed on the march by the Met, and now intend to stage a single RTS, Advance Party, Freedom Network and Union demonstration in Liverpool on that date. So that would be the Saturday, the 28th of September 96. Do you recall these demonstrations?
Right, I don't... Is this one of Boyling's reports?
This is a special branch report. Do you want to see the whole of it, if we can take that?
Hold on, just leave it.
Oh.
The thing is, I am aware I did attend a protest in Liverpool in support of the dockers, but at that time I was living at a road protest camp called Fairmile in Devon. I travelled up with a group of people from the camp to Reclaim the Future, yes. So I attended, but I wasn't involved in any organisation for it. So anything about the Advance Party and Freedom Network and all this stuff is not anything I would know about.
And when you attended, is it right that you stayed at the house and prepared meals? And
I met the Liverpool police. They came to the squat and they terrified me. They were just... They seemed scary. And I think where I was at that time in myself, so I didn't really want to engage, which is probably a good idea. They were very, very violent. I had a close friend who was beaten up in the back of the police van, and other people were as well. So I chose to take the easy option and stay and cook food and get with the dogs.
Does the reference to the groups being unhappy with the restrictions placed on the march by the Met, does that indicate that there had been some pre-event negotiations or meetings with the Met? Was the initial plan to have a march down in London?
Yeah, again, I was primarily living at Fairmile at this time.
Okay. Paragraph 3 talks about a Newbury spin-off action planned for the 20th of August, involving a number of RTS members. And Monica, who was arrested on Monday the 5th of August at the Richmond offices of Pinkerton Security Agency, is again the co-coordinator.
No.
Is that accurate?
No. I vaguely remember something about... I remember nothing about this. So I've either got a massive memory block, but I definitely don't... Yeah. And to be honest, after the Pinkertons thing, I don't think I would have been organising anything at that time.
Did that have a chilling effect on your involvement?
It was horrible. Well, not my involvement as such, but a personally thing for me. It was a really horrible experience.
I'd like to ask you about a Brighton Street party, which was on the 24th of August, 96, and this is behind tab B6, MPS 0246589. And is this a street party that you were at? You recall it?
I recall it.
So about 800 people attended. We can see in the header there, the mood was antagonistic, according to the report. Would you say that's fair?
800 seems like a lot, but as I say, I don't know. Antagonistic. I wasn't feeling antagonistic. My ex-partner and somebody else were violently arrested. He was dragged down the street. He still has photographs of the marks on his back from it. I think it was a lot of chaos around us. Carry on.
That's all right. Paragraph 1, if it helps you, adds a bit more detail to it as well. It talks about poor organisation by inexperienced activists resulted in the early confiscation of most of the demonstrators' equipment before the event actually started, making the intended action with tripods, sound systems, etc. impossible. And this led to an unsettled mobile demonstration which ran through the streets of Brighton for several hours, during which time 80 people were arrested.
I think there was I wasn't conscious of this, so it's a street party. As I said, there were street parties in lots of places, and you turned up to go to the street party. And at this day, I had just turned up. So I'm not disputing the bit about disorganisation, or definitely the street party didn't happen. And we were around Churchill Square, that area. And so I think there's there's truth to that, but I wouldn't be aware of that myself. I've only seen this report relatively recently.
Okay, the source comment, if we can enlarge that, please. So this is a comment made by Boiling. So it's on page 1. Second paragraph. States that the chaos and mayhem in Brighton demonstrates the fact that disorder and disruption are the most likely result of police preventing RTS and allied activists from achieving their desired objective. A static party causes fewer problems than a rolling confrontation does, and it's easier to contain. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and also a static party is much more fun and much more expressive of what is, especially in a place like Brighton, because it's quite an interesting place. So a lot of people would have come into that space and enjoyed and engaged with that space if it had been allowed just to arise. But obviously that's very a police perspective.
Paragraph 4, please, if we can enlarge that. Unable to block the road and denied loud music, the demonstrators were initially boxed in by police, ironically at the very point where the street party was to have taken place. Half the crowd was able to drift away through police lines and to regroup on the seafront where traffic was disrupted. We can see over the page that activists were then pursued for about 3 hours all around town with remarkably little damage to property. Do you have any recollection of that? Can you comment any further on your perspective of the day?
I mean, it's interesting my memories of the day, I think, are primarily about my ex-partner and someone else getting arrested. So that was obviously quite big, and the term snatch squads, because that might well have been what happened to them. The other person was someone who I'd seen get snatched before. He was a Reclaim the Streets organiser, a very creative person, and my partner as well. So that was probably one of those, to be honest.
Can you recall what Boiling's role was during that event?
I don't have any memories of Boiling. I think we moved in slightly different circles at this point. So we knew each other and we engaged in the pub and we were friendly. I remember that we were friendly, but we kind of moved in slightly different circles. I don't know what the date of this was.
This was the 24th of August, 96.
Yeah.
Okay. In contrast, there was another street party a couple of months later in Oxford on the 31st of October 96. Do you recall that? A Halloween event. This is behind tab B8, MPS 0246780. And the report says that about 600 people attended this event. In paragraph 2, it says Thames Valley Police had apparently decided against confronting the group, opting instead to simply redirect local traffic around them. And this effectively pulled the teeth of the event, which requires a degree of police opposition to work effectively as an action. Unopposed, it literally is just a street party, devoid of the necessary element of political significance. Nevertheless, as with all such previous events, it was hailed a success by most of the London Reclaim the Streets contingent. Do you agree with that? Does that chime with your recollection?
Again, I think it's very much a police perspective. I think for me at that time, I enjoyed seeing my friends. So we kind of. So I saw people from Newbury. I saw people I didn't see very often, and it wasn't the Cowley Road where the street party was an alternative area. So it wasn't like. So it was still about creating. It was partly about blocking traffic and rising that, but it was also about creating an alternative space and an open space again that's free of cars. Because if you've got cars going in between you, you're separated. People on either side of the pavement are separated and their interactions are limited. Whereas when you bring in a sound system and a party, then that opens the space because people in parties and they interact. So on that level, it was successful.
You say in your witness statement that you then had a break from London from about October 1996 to early 1997. Was this the Fair Mile Road protest camp down in Devon that you'd been attending?
I think so, if that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure exactly of the dates that those things happened, but I definitely was at Fair Mile I came back to London occasionally, but I was living there.
So a good few months out of the London scene.
Yeah.
And you didn't see Boiling much during that time?
No.
And there's
not at all.
Equally little to no reporting on you during that time as well. Then you moved back to London, so this will be early 1997, and you and Boiling are both involved with the Never Mind the Ballots event in the run-up to the general election. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I think I came back to London. To be honest, don't remember exactly why, though I know there is a reason. I came back to London and that was already being planned. And, so I wasn't,
So you weren't part of the organising team for that, but
no,
was Boiling?
I came to understand that he was, yes.
The date of this is the 11th of April 1997, and the MPS number is 000040279. This talks about a march for social justice on the 12th of April. And this may be... Sorry, can we take that down?
Can you leave that one up? Because I don't think this has been disclosed to me. So I don't think I've ever seen this before.
No, I don't think it has, because you're not named in it.
Yeah, exactly. So could I read it?
You can take time and have a look at that.
More significant. Oh my God.
So this is a report that was written on the 11th of April 97, but the source of the information was obtained on the 9th of April, so a couple of days before.
Where does this information come from?
I think this has been attributed to Boiling.
Yeah, of course.
So at the time, obviously this was an expression of distrust of politicians, according to you in your witness statement. Is that right?
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
I'm feeling really emotional reading this, because this is what was supposed to happen on the day. I don't know if people can see that, what this actually says. Because
it's effectively setting out the plan, isn't it, as to what was going to happen.
Isn't it nice? Wouldn't that have been good? You know, it was a well-designed plan to create a space for people to gather and to consider who really controls. The thing about myself at the time of the 1997 election, where Tony Blair was elected, is that it was neoliberal capitalism. That was what, and let's have more of the same. And this was to highlight this, that while this was the Labour Party, nothing was changing and the real issues weren't being addressed. So I kind of had got sense that it might be something to do with the party. I didn't know the plan. I didn't want to know the plan. It wasn't important necessarily to know the plan. And so for me, when we got contained at Trafalgar Square and the plan didn't happen and we had a street party there, I was kind of happy. Because I didn't actually, until now, know what the plan was. And the beautiful expressions of what we really felt about this time that was in the evading standards thing that got together, these were all designed at communication. They were all designed at creating a space for people to come together and explore the issues that were not being addressed by mainstream society for us, which is still the same now, 30 years later. There's still a deafening silence about these issues, or contained in, anyway. And so to read this, I can imagine you want to cry. Because, as I say in my statement, Boiling was one of the three main organisers of this, and I was really proud of him. I always thought he's really stepped up, but obviously he and the police who employed him made this not happen, and I'm angry and upset about that in this moment. It's heartbreaking. And it's so effective, isn't it, at limiting the debate and controlling the options, because no one's allowed to actually express anything that's different.
You say that he was one of the three RTS organisers of the event.
Yes.
You do say in your witness statement as well that you understood if he got arrested in that role, it could be a serious offence.
Well, yeah.
What did you understand at the time he was doing?
I mean, to be honest, I probably didn't think about it at that time as a thing, but it's to be one of the three main people. So there's, I can give, it's on my privacy checklist, the third name down.
Yes.
And fourth name down were the other two.
Yeah.
And she had police outside her address of the morning.
So it's a big thing to be one of the main organisers of an event like this.
Yeah, and the fourth name down, I remember when I was actually in a relationship with Boiling, him kind of mocking this person because on the morning of this event, he got really nervous and anxious. He was kind of mocking him, obviously, because this is he's a Metropolitan Police officer, isn't he? He's like handpicked to join the special club. So he's obviously quite good at keeping calm in the situation. And as Helen Steele rightly says, he wasn't actually taking any risks at all, was he?
Can I just clarify with you, when you say the names, is it the third, fourth and fifth names down, including the one at the very top?
No, it's the what I missed that one because there was lots of numbers underneath that. So it's the fourth and fifth number down with page 13 next to them.
Yes, thank you. Boiling in his witness statement at paragraph 130 says, I was on the main organising group of about 8 to 10 people for all RTS events subsequent to the M41 demonstration that we'd heard about earlier in Shepherd's Bush. And up until the J18 event in 1999, which was the Carnival Against Capitalism event in on the 18th of June 99. Does that chime with your recollection of his role?
As I say, I left London early 1999. I wouldn't have known prior to that. Like, obviously, he's saying he probably was, but he's not saying that he was the three main organisers that were to make this happen. The ones taking the risk, as it was considered to be at the time. He was one of those.
Okay. There is a special branch note dated the 12th of March, 97. So that's about a month before this event. And it shows DS War as the author, which refers to Boiling as being, quote, a leading figure in London RTS with contacts throughout Britain and indeed Europe, close quotes. Now, Boiling agrees with that description. Would you agree with that description?
I wouldn't be able to comment on that description. I would, and I think it's probably quite true, but it's also probably over-exaggerated, isn't it? It's like, on some level, it's the other side of the coin to the one that I was aware of. I can't really comment on it. Yeah.
The woman we know as Ruth,
yes,
who I think you know as well as a member of RTS, she also says in her witness statement at page 7, paragraph 3.8, I don't need to bring it up, but effectively she refers to this comment by Boiling in his statement about being in a broadly similar position to her within RTS, and says a broadly similar position to you in RTS, and to a lesser extent another woman he had a relationship with going by the name of Rosa. And Ruth says she disagrees with him, saying that there was no explicit formal structure within RTS, and in fact she was more well known than Boiling within an RTS and trusted by the group. And she said that Boiling was actually a bit of an outsider, and that his description of himself as a core member of the group is an exaggeration, and he only maintained proximity to them through her. Can you comment on that?
All I know is that at this event, which I still have this report from, the Never Mind the Ballots, Festival of Resistance, was it? I think it was called. It was the aim to have a space in London for a weekend to explore the things that were important to us. I know that for that event, he had stepped up, so to speak, with three. So, but I would also agree with Ruth that I would say that she would be a more fundamentally trusted person because of personal relationships that were long-standing with certain people who were quite involved in the creative, because creativity isn't something you can just go and get, it's something that you have and also ability. Yeah, so does that make sense? So I say she had more long-standing friendships, personal connections.
Is it right that Boiling was not in a sexual relationship at the time of this event? We know what happened, and this is obviously the event where, after which, you enter a sexual relationship with him.
I didn't know that he was or wasn't, to be honest. So if he said to me he was, it'd been fine.
If he wasn't in a sexual relationship at this time, then is it right that nevertheless, even without a sexual relationship, it was apparent that he was a key organiser and within the inner circle of RTS at this point?
Yeah, but if we look back on it, like, just in this moment saying, he was a key organiser, but the event he just organised didn't happen, did it? The police knew what was going on because of him. So I don't really know what to say to that.
I suppose what I'm trying to get at is that it's about a year and a half into his infiltration of RTS, about 2 years since he's been deployed from the start.
Really, I suppose would be the answer, wasn't it?
Yeah. Without being in a relationship, a sexual relationship up until that point, it doesn't appear to have hindered his ability to infiltrate the inner workings or the inner core of a group. Would you say that's fair or not?
Knowing things about people is helpful in creating trust. I suppose there's the whole thing that Boiling says in his statement, doesn't he, about it's hard to avoid sex, drugs and crime. And in their tacit, this whole narrative. It's not a narrative without substance. And in order to infiltrate the lives and the privacy and the beliefs of people who want to create positive social change, it had proved quite an effective tactic. It's proved quite an effective tactic in not allowing this event to happen, which is really sad. Because there's a lot of time and energy and love put into creating that event for positive reasons. And so, yes, I do think you can spy on people without having sex with them. And I think you should try to spy on people if you have to spy on people in this society, in this way, and protesters and people trying to create positive, social change. If the society makes a choice that you have to infiltrate their lives, then it's a very good idea not to have sex with them. And that should never be a tactic for getting your legend legitimised. Sorry, just take...
Would you like to pause for a moment?
Oh, don't need to take about. Just give me a few minutes, please.
Pause.
Okay.
You're okay to continue. At this event, for the Nevermind the Ballots event, you were on the creative side of it, and you were involved in making the flags of a way of directing the crowd and leading people towards the Department of Environment building. Is that right?
Yeah, like it says in the bit about the evading standards publication, there was this bit to be given out that would help. I hadn't seen that, I just knew that I had to at some point follow someone else on the day with one of the flags that I'd made. No, well, I didn't know whether I made them, there were lots of flags.
You said part of that actually didn't happen in the end, as you say, but there was still a sound system up in Trafalgar Square. Was there a party in Trafalgar Square?
Yeah, contained nicely.
And you describe at paragraph 319 of your witness statement that there were tensions around the police lines and the prospect of impounding the sound system.
I might need a break, but let's try, okay? Because to be honest, I'm just feeling quite angry about the whole thing at the moment. So when you say tensions, I think when people are contained by a police line, so just to talk about that really with that time, because it is important. So it was... The parties go. I saw, these places were places where we gathered. Like we saw people we loved, we cared about, we danced, we connected, we talked, we caught up with each other, we hugged each other, we celebrated, And so on some level for me, as I was at that time, it was lovely. It was like Trafalgar Square was ours, kids were playing in the fountain, whatever. And then as things get to that end point, obviously the tensions arise because we're contained by a police line. I remember going up to the police line, just going and looking. It must have been getting towards the end of the day. And I saw an officer who had his hand back, and his truncheon was there, and he looked quite angry and great, So I left. And then I was a bit like, I don't quite know what to do with myself now. And then I saw somebody I was going to go and say hello to, and he was quite confused. He drank a lot, bless him, but he kind of put this mask up on his nose, and so I didn't go up to him. And then next minute, this guy with a kid on his shoulders came running up after this person, and he wanted to kill him because sadly, the person I knew from Newbury had thrown something at the police line. Because this is the edge of... And so I I felt like I calmed the situation down, and the guy didn't hit him. So I got in between, and then I was really by that point. And I walked towards the sound system, and I saw Jim Boiling. And he was looking towards the sound system. And I hadn't seen him. That was probably the first time I'd seen him for a while. So I went up to him, and I remember asking him what was happening, and he was saying, he said to me, I'm really worried they're not going to let the sound system out. And I remember I held his hand and was supportive in the way that I knew how, as a member of the crowd. And I think they did let the sound system out. Obviously now, that's what happened at the time. Now I know different things about who he really was. But as far as impounding the sound system, I don't know anything about that.
you do display or exhibit a picture of yourself at that Trafalgar Square event. It's behind A2. I'm not going to display it because it's privacy redacted anyway. You went to the pub afterwards, after the event. Do you recall that?
I was just following everyone else.
Was there a sense that this action had failed? Was there a sense of disappointment?
Personally, for me, as I say, I was ignorant, and as I talked about earlier, I was kind of like in my own little world in many ways. So I remember talking to somebody when we were leaving Trafalgar Square, and she was expressing disappointment. So I think she may have known more about the plan. She's an amazing woman.
Was there a sense of disappointment amongst
For
the
her,
organisers?
she was. She said, well, the real plan didn't happen. And I was like, oh, we got to Trafalgar Square, we had a party this Trafalgar Square. Do you know what I mean? Because I didn't know what we'd lost, really. And yeah.
And how was Boiling? Do you recall how he was?
Well, what happened, when I walked into the pub, he was sat, what I remember is he sat, like in the cubbyhole seats, if I remember correctly, like the ones like benches and then a table. So he was sat there, and when he saw me, he looked relieved. So he looked pleased to see me. Well, pleased to see me would probably have been like, but also I could look back at it now and go relieved.
Was there any sense that the event had been sabotaged or that there had been a leak?
As I say, for me, I've been hanging out with my friends from not the people involved in organising this event. I've been hanging out with my friends from the road protest sites more. Do you know what I mean? I've just been in that world.
So this wasn't discussed. There wasn't a debrief at the pub afterwards or anything like that.
We just arrived at the pub. I mean, it's funny. It's like I've known this for 15 years, but even recently, I can sort of see how convenient I was, because obviously it's in my witness statement what happened after. I was his get out of having to deal with this not working. I obviously didn't realise that at the time, but that seems to be what I did.
You say that you left the pub together. Is that right?
We left the pub, and then I remember sitting on the wall with him. I think the other people had gone off. I think there was another place that they'd had an emergency place to go to if the plan didn't work, but I didn't really know any of this. It wasn't something I was aware of.
Is it right that you leant in to kiss him, or did he turn to you? Or?
It's hard to say. I wasn't, but I think we looked at each other, and then, I kissed him.
And you say that you asked him if you could go home with him.
Yeah.
Is that right? And he immediately said yes.
Yeah.
Was there any hesitation there?
I don't remember it.
And was it clear to both of you, as far as you could tell at that stage, what was likely to happen if you went home with him?
Yeah.
And the intention was to have sex. He said he needed to get his van, is that right?
Yeah.
And did he disappear at that point?
Yeah, I think we might, because there was a party, I think there was a squatty building, I think it's a party in that. So I think that might have just been over the road from the pub. I really don't remember. And I remember waiting for him to go and get his van and then him coming back probably quite quickly, really. I mean, I can just see it from the other side now. It's just like, what a perfect avoidance strategy.
Did you go on to an after party?
No, I think it was just, I don't remember exactly. It was just opposite the pub. It wasn't far away. So I waited for him, I think, just there. And then he turned up with the van and we left. Because there's only so much social engagement that I can handle before I need to break. Do you know what I mean? So at that point, I needed a break.
And if he hadn't have come back with the van or said no to you, what would have happened?
I would have felt a bit rejected, but that's normal, so I would have just carried on.
Was there opportunity for him not to have sex with you that evening?
Yeah, of course.
He did take you back. He took you to his one-bed flat in East Dulwich, is that right?
Yeah.
And at the flat, he smoked a spliff, and did you smoke with him?
Mm-hmm.
So that was cannabis. He was smoking cannabis.
With tobacco.
Mixed with tobacco. And what impact did that have on you?
I had stopped smoking in the new year. I had smoking-related illness. I had really bad bronchitis. Obviously, my mother had died of smoking. I smoked in the womb a little, and I passively smoked all my childhood. And then I started smoking at 14. And I smoked about 40 cigarettes a day. I was very, very addicted. And then when cannabis came along, I also developed a dual addiction of tobacco and cannabis. So giving up smoking I was very afraid that I was going to die. I was very afraid, what happened to my mum and stuff, but I was also massively addicted to tobacco. And like an alcoholic, I still am. I don't use, but... And smoking that spliff with him and smoking with him at the beginning of our relationship, he could just smoke tobacco and have one at a pub and smoke spliffs at home by himself, as he's admitted. But my addiction to tobacco was so strong that I couldn't. And while I didn't start smoking, giving up, I was still smoking other people's tobacco, asking other people's tobacco, and it was... Afterwards, it had an effect on my ability to breathe, my ability to cycle from North to South London, and my mental health. So it restarted my tobacco addiction because I have very little power over my tobacco addiction.
You say in your witness statement that you deeply resent Boiling for starting that habit again.
Well, let's be clear, I deeply resent that there was an undercover police officer in my life smoking cannabis and infiltrating my life that started that tobacco addiction. And that also laughed at me for not being able to breathe properly when I ran.
Was it common for people to smoke within the group and smoke cannabis within the group?
It was common for people within the subculture to smoke cannabis, but it was also common for people not to.
Was there any suspicion around people who didn't smoke?
No.
You had sex that night at his flat, is that right?
Yes.
And the next morning you say you discussed what had happened, and that's when you decided to have a relationship, is that right?
I don't know what he was deciding. His narrative, his whole universe was very different than mine. He obviously has to consider if rejecting me will... he's playing from a different handbook, isn't he? Or not?
Was it your sense that that would be a monogamous relationship?
Yes.
Was there either one of you that pressed for a formal relationship, or not a formal relationship, but for it to continue in that way? Was it mutual?
I thought it was mutual. Though, yeah.
And again, what if... Sorry, you want to carry on?
I think these are the things we talked about earlier, but when you're not socially confident, any mirroring, any feelings that you're actually safe with that person and they're not rejecting you can sometimes be perceived as attraction that might not be, from my perspective, and obviously some of the things that we talked about earlier. So I have got it wrong in the past. But he was, as we know, he was a serving Metropolitan Police officer, so he's playing something completely different. Does that make sense? So I might have he might never have looked at me. I don't know whether what I thought was attraction between us was mutual attraction was actually there in retrospect. Does that make sense?
But that was your understanding at the time.
That was my understanding at the time.
And what if Boiling had said that he wasn't interested in continuing in a relationship?
Or that he had a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Or something else that I would have been, oh, okay, that's fine. Maybe you could have told me last night. It wouldn't have been an issue.
And you say that the relationship lasted about 6 months, from that April to about October 1997.
Yes.
Is it right that you regularly stayed at his flat? You kept a toothbrush and some clothes there?
Yes.
And is that because you were in North London, he was South London?
Yes.
He was East Dulwich, wasn't he? That's
Yes.
where his flat was. And did you have regular sex during the course of your relationship?
I think so, yeah.
You say in your witness statement it's probably at least once a week. You didn't live with each other, but you regularly saw each other.
Yeah.
Can I take you, please, to HN14's witness statement? It's at UCPI 36294 at page 97. And it's paragraph 182. Boiling's various accounts have been inconsistent, but at its shortest, he suggests that the relationship lasted a few weeks over the summer of 1997. What do you say about that?
That's not true.
And at paragraph 196, he says, I think she stayed at my flat on a few occasions and probably slept together about a dozen times, he says later.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say about that?
It's not true.
Is there a sense of him downplaying the relationship?
It seems that way, doesn't it?
Could there be a truth that lies somewhere in between your two accounts, so that there's not one account that's obviously wrong?
I don't think so, no. I mean, I don't know exactly. I was quite an independent person at this time. And obviously I can see what's come up on the screen now. So I don't think so. I'm saying we had an intimate relationship for 6 months between April and October 1997. And during that period, I considered him my boyfriend, as it would have been, and that I saw him regularly. I went back to his flat after Reclaim the Streets meetings. If I wasn't going anywhere else or leaving London for any other reason, then I spent time with him.
Did you spend time outside of Reclaim the Streets meetings? So would you go out for meals, cinema, day trips, that sort of thing?
I think, I definitely went to cinema, definitely went out, yeah. I don't remember precisely, but I know I went to cinema with him. I have quite a few memories of being in South London. I'd never really spent any time in South London before then.
Was he quite generous towards you? How did he treat you as a girlfriend?
It varied.
We can come on to some specific events that you recall in a moment. At paragraph 183 of his witness statement, he suggests that you were seeing other people at the same time as him.
It's not true.
For instance, in Wales and on a road camp.
It's not true. I have friends. It's hard to describe the closeness. I think it is documented psychologically. You know, the closeness that people get when they have a common aim, and they have a shared purpose. So people in the road protest movement, you met lots of different people and you connected with people. And he had strong friendships, strong intimacies almost. But, you know, if you were... Yeah, so we can go on to this next bit.
Before we leave his witness statement, can I take you to paragraph 190, please? He says that it would have been difficult not to engage in a relationship with you. It would be... Let me bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
He says it is difficult to sustain the image of a single bloke living alone within activists groups where relationships are made and unmade very easily, and almost all activists were in a relationship with another known activist. What do you say about that?
It's hard to comment on it, really. There's truth in it, and there's what. Yeah, that's from a Metropolitan Police officer's perspective, isn't it? I don't. They could have tried. You know, young single men do not usually avoid it would have been hard to not be in a relationship. To be honest, I don't know what to say about it.
We heard at the end of last year when Mark Jenner gave his evidence to this inquiry in December that he said the single man lifestyle was unsustainable. Do you say that there was a way for people to avoid having sexual relationships with somebody during the course of their deployment?
Well, it would have protected my human rights and Alison's human rights and every other of the Category H women's human rights not to have had sex with us. It's a question for the state to answer, but as it says on there, kind of in their backroom conversations rather than on the tradecraft manual, as an undercover officer, it's difficult to avoid crime, sex and drugs. But it's also, it doesn't seem to me that difficult to not infiltrate the lives of people who are trying to create positive social change and have good motivations to this level. We are not criminals. We're the most public order. It's just too far. It just should never happen, and it should never happen again. It is wrong. It's hard to have an opinion on whether it was avoidable or not.
You can see at the end of that paragraph, he says she had kissed me in front of other activists.
I don't think I had. I don't think I would have kissed him in front of other activists if they'd been stood around the pub. I think we were alone. So he could have just said, look, sorry, love. And for me, that wouldn't have been a big problem.
So this suggestion that it would have been talked about in the group if he didn't act on it, that's nonsense, you say in your witness statement.
He's obviously paranoid as well, isn't he? Because this man is lying to everybody around him. He's just been one of three main organisers, making sure that an event that lots of people have put a lot of time, energy and love and commitment into organising did not happen. So his state of mind is nothing to do with me. He's pretending to be somebody else. I believed who he was. I believed his legend. Sorry, it's hard not to be angry about this stuff. I'm sorry.
No,
it is hard, and he is what he is.
Paragraph 8.7 in your witness statement, you do say that sometimes feelings are reciprocated and sometimes not, and any refusal to engage sexually would have been entirely unremarkable.
Yeah, we were very much for people's right to be themselves. That's what we were for. We were for people's rights. We were kind. We cared about each other. We loved one another. Doesn't mean we were all having sex up trees every 5 seconds, but people were free to choose to do what they wanted to do.
We touched very briefly on his treatment of you, and there are a few instances where you say you saw a nasty side to him, and you express that in your witness statement in paragraph 3.46 to 3.51. perhaps if I just flag those few instances, he mocked you for feeling insecure about people talking about you behind your back. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I did talk about earlier the van incident, yeah.
And he mocked you and shouted at you for entertaining the possibility of aliens visiting Earth.
Yeah, that was really, it was a weird experience. Obviously, I look back at that because I was quite shocked by his behaviour, like how he was mocking me, because I suppose my mind is always trying to fix the world, you know, and sometimes it feels quite desperate. So if some intelligent life form came down and tried to help us sort it out, it would be like really appreciated, but obviously it hasn't happened.
You've said already he laughed at you for your level of physical fitness, despite knowing that you suffered with bronchial issues.
Yeah. Are there more? There are.
The other incident that you describe is when he left you in the cold when you slept together in the van. And
Well, he had a better sleeping bag than mine. And so when I woke him up, I'm cold, he just rolled over. And then after a night, I just accepted. But then afterwards, it became a little bit of a joke about me longing to have a snug pack. This is a posh sleeping bag that he had.
And that's when you stopped and camped in the van at the Lake Districts on the way up to Strathclyde, is that right?
Yeah, on the way to the Earth First gathering, yeah.
And we can come on to that report a little bit later. He was, you say at paragraph 3.50, he was antagonistic about your feminist beliefs.
Well, I gave an interview to Operation Hearn at some point, and I kind of, towards the end of that, I remembered this incident. So I'd gone to some, I think it was supposed to be a woman's only workshop, or I don't really know, but it was supposed to be women only, but there was a young man there, his mum I think was a feminist, and he really wanted to show his support for women's causes, so to speak. But so the meeting kind of got took over by him being there and us feeling a bit uncomfortable, people feeling a bit uncomfortable about him being there, but not one, you know, it became a bit of it took over the meeting. And I went back to the van and was talking to him about this because it had been quite intense. And he just was mocking me about the need to have women's only spaces because this man being there had disrupted the space and it had made it all about him. But obviously he had issue, you know. So, and I kept trying to earnestly explain what that meant, like from my lived experience in that moment. And he kept just mocking it and going, oh, well, we should have men's only spaces, no doubt. And he wouldn't, you know, when you're really trying to explain something to somebody that means a lot to you and they don't listen and they don't hear and actually they keep taking their position in a degrading way. So he just kept mocking and like not listening and I think he was playing with me, in truth, now. I look back at that. I think he was playing with me because he could see that I was getting upset and frustrated. And it was upsetting because I just felt totally not listened to and demeaned and like, you know, like mocked and, yeah.
You also say that he was unsupportive in a private matter as well. And that's something that has been redacted from your statement. But there are instances where you're saying he doesn't show a kind, supportive, emotional response to you in the relationship.
Can I be, well, obviously I'd be truthful. I think what I think now from this position is that he was trying to get away from me. So there's an incident that you haven't raised, but there was a point where it appeared on my screen, which was when, and I think it was after the aliens thing. So I was thinking back to this, and he accused me of hitting him, and I think what I did was, you know, like a child when they're frustrated, would like just tap out at something. I think I did that, and then he got really upset and going, "You've hit me," blah, blah, blah. And I kind of describe it as his Truman Show moment, like the part in the Truman Show when the woman's trying to get away from him because he's realised, you know, it's just like, I think he's just like, who is this woman? And I got really, 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 really upset because he was angry, and I think I perceived I was being rejected or something. So I got really upset, and he left his own flat and left me. I was begging him, please don't leave me. And I think one of the things that I would like to say today is he did. And I kind of would, I've been afraid of knowing what he really thought of me a lot, because I think he had contempt for me. There might have been other things there, but there was contempt. And there was a sense of me being lesser than him and a bit of an idiot and inferior, because he is this high-profile, ever so good Metropolitan Police officer. What I'd really like to know, but also would really not want to know, is what he said to his handler that night when he left his, his duff flat. Because I believe that he had conversations with other officers about the mad crazy bitch or whatever. I don't know. I know that there's very little chance he'll ever... But yeah, I don't want to know. But I know that those conversations probably happened. So that's...
The incident that you refer to that was put up on the screen, is that where he says you entered his flat through the window and slept in the bed?
Oh, that's a different one.
Oh.
I did do that because the window was open and he wasn't in. And, sorry, but it just didn't seem like an issue because I thought he was one of us, and maybe sometimes I can struggle to have boundaries.
In terms of contraception, was contraception used?
Yeah, we'd always use condoms.
I'd like to move to reporting from him during the course of the relationship. So the first report is in relation to current court cases, behind tab B11, MPS 40365. So this is about a month after you've got together following the Never Mind the Ballots event. And we can see here at paragraph 1 that you're named here, appearing at court to plead guilty to charges of causing criminal damage at the home of the erstwhile Transport Secretary.
There's a privacy reduction under Slough-based animal rights activist. Is that on my cipher list? On the...
Yes, it's over the page, fourth box down.
Oh, yeah. But it doesn't say who that person is.
That might be something that we can have a look at during the
Okay, it doesn't
break.
really matter, but yeah.
But effectively, what was this in relation to?
It was just a publicity stunt it was around the Newbury bypass was being constructed. So it was someone's idea that we go to his house and a turf, when you dig up a turf and then you can put it back, and as a publicity stunt, really. And someone else had done it somewhere else and it wasn't criminal damage because they put the grass back after. So he said that the guy who was organising said it wasn't criminal damage.
It appears that this is the first report on you, at least, where the codename Psycho Dream appears. And in his witness statement, he addresses that and suggests that around that time is when he was registered as an informant or as a chiz in preparation for the RIPA legislation coming into force. I don't know if you're aware.
I'm not.
In relation to that, but
carry on.
So that's an aside, really, in terms of this is where the Psycho Dream codename.
So you think
appears.
it's for me? I am the Psycho Dream.
The inquiry does not understand that it has any relevance to their operations, their random names that are produced and attributed to the different officers. You're fined in relation to this between £100 and £200. Was that right?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I really didn't want to get arrested. It was just such a farce. But anyway, yes.
The next report is in relation to Bristol Street Party on the 21st of June 97. It's behind tab B12, MPS 40417. Now, if we can just go to page 2 first. Or page 3, sorry. It appears that this might be the first report where we can see your cipher moniker in the list of people who were in attendance. It appears that this might be the first time that an RF number arises in relation to you. And those are obviously the registry files.
It's not on my
opened.
thing, it's just privacy's on my thing, but yeah.
Okay, so going back to page 1 then, please. Paragraph 1. This is where RTS sets up a sound system blocking a 7-lane carriageway in both directions. The police had evicted activists from a squat that was meant to provide accommodation and social space for the weekend. Do you recall that?
I think so. Can I just, go back to the RF number? So that you're saying to me that the first time I had an RF number was some point before the 21st of the 6th, 1997?
That's what we understand at the moment.
That's what you understand. Okay, thanks. If it's the one that I remember, a bit confused. Yeah, but I would imagine that Jim Boyling would have known where that was. But now I would imagine. But yes, I think that, there was a squat we were supposed to hang out with, overnight, so we could sleep overnight and then be there in the morning.
So you both attended that event together?
I don't remember the first night, the Friday night we went down gym, but I definitely remember being with him on the Saturday and the Sunday. So I was probably at the squat with him.
And what was the mood like amongst the squatters as a result of the police action of evicting you from the squat?
I think it was really disappointing because it was part of I don't really know the element of surprise, because that's what you're trying to do in organising a street. You're trying to create an element of surprise.
It says in paragraph 2 that the above police action and the advanced publicity in the local press led to a marked reluctance from suppliers of sound systems to take part. So was there advanced publicity about it in the press?
You have to remember that Jim Boyling is more involved, more competent, obviously he's a serving Metropolitan Police officer, about what's going on in the back room. I'm kind of just like a foot soldier. I mean, I'm part of the movement. I care about the issues, but I'm just turning up. I don't know about this stuff. I didn't know about it at the time.
Paragraph 3 talks about police trying to divert the crowd away from McDonald's, which ended up getting its windows smashed anyway, and arrests were made. Do you remember anything about that?
No.
Paragraph 4 talks about trouble flared around 7:30 in the evening when police tried to clear the last partygoers.
I normally have left before that point.
So are you not able to help us with the accuracy of this report in terms of the level of any disruption?
Yeah, I wasn't there. Yeah, I mean, I'm not just saying it really had nothing to do with me, Your Honour. But it didn't. I mean, I avoid that kind of thing. It's not where I want to be. I think I'm more... My role often in these things is more to be like... take space and like go, yeah, let's do this. And that's kind of what naturally happens. I'm not against other people smashing. Well, I don't know where I'm at in relation to these things, but it's not something I do.
From the 25th to the 26th of June, we can take that down now, thank you. You went to Glastonbury, and you remember going there with Boyling, and you slept in the van, is that right? In his witness statement, he says that you had your own tent.
No.
What were the sleeping arrangements?
I slept in his van. That was the only place I had to sleep. To be honest, if I'd had my own tent, I would have probably slept in it.
Did he give you a tent at one stage?
He lent me a tent at some point. So this would have been July, and I had this idea that I would go to Buddhafield Festival because it'd be full of Buddhists and I could stop smoking again there. I was really struggling to stop smoking. And he might have lent it me before because I went to but maybe, I think I had it for a while, this tent. So I think that was when he lent me the tent. And
so he lent you the tent for a subsequent event, not at Glastonbury?
Yeah.
Okay. The next event is from the 9th to the 15th of July 1997. So this is the next one that's reported that names you, and it's the Earth First National Gathering in Strathclyde, which we've touched on. This is where you both drove up in the van, you camped in the Lake Districts on the way up, which is the snug pack night where you were cold, and continued then up to the event, which was that a week-long event up in Scotland?
I think it would be possibly 5 days and stuff like that. I don't really know exactly. It was a while. It was at least 5 days.
At paragraph 201.13 of Boyling's statement, he says that his name is not listed as an attendee at the Strathclyde event, and he doesn't remember attending.
Yeah.
And further, he would have obtained the information second-hand or third-hand for the report. And you suggest in your witness statement that actually, just because he isn't listed, he thinks he doesn't need to admit it, and he's actively lying.
Well, what I noticed from what I was disclosed is once I started a relationship with Boyling and we attended events together, his name and my name appeared. So he reported on himself. Jim Sutton's in attendance and so am I. So, you know, as I said, I can't know, but we definitely did attend that event together.
And is that where the feminist workshop
Yes.
incident happened as well? And we know, but I don't need to bring it up, behind tab B14 of your hearing bundle at MPS 0527813, for the record, is the authorisation for his travel to Scotland.
Yeah, so he has travel authorisation, and I think there is somewhere that's almost that there's a report on that event that must have come from Boyling. I haven't got the details here, but I swear there's something in my disclosure that lists the plan for an event, action at the end, and various things about that event.
Okay. The next event is the 11th of August 97. This is behind tab B16. If we could have this one up, please. It's MPS 000488. I'll give you a moment just to have a look at that report. Primarily paragraph 1, but the whole report is useful. Have you read paragraph 1?
Oh, yeah, I have read that.
It talks about there being a bit of disruption or disarray in recent weeks, and there have been frustrations amongst the group when a heated argument between some of the lesser members of the group prompted a walkout of the few experienced organisers present. And those who left the meeting included you as one of the more experienced organisers. Do you recall that event?
I don't know, truth be told. I don't know. I don't have a precise recollection. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I'm saying I don't really remember it. You know, let's say there's kind of like vague, but nothing has ever really come that's a clear memory.
Do you remember discussing the event with Boyling?
I mean, I think we did talk about the politics within the politics. Do you know what I mean? And I definitely engaged in that kind of talk, and I'm quite opinionated. I'm not always right, but quite opinionated. And so, yeah, it might have happened, but I can't comment on it because I don't have a precise memory.
Do you recall what his role was within the group dynamics around this incident?
No.
And he didn't take a particular view of what was going on?
I really can't honestly remember.
Towards the
he
end of this
reported on
document,
it.
Towards the end of this document, we can see that your RF number is noted on the list again. So this is by August 97. Your RF number is noted there. Two more reports very quickly. I don't need to bring them up, but you were reported on the 3rd of September 97. It's behind tab B17. For the record, it's MPS 000519. It's to do with 100 days of action preparation. And this is to do with the planned action against the oil industry in the run-up to the Kyoto summit. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. And you were putting energy into the Strike Oil event that was part of that 100 days of action. So he's reported on you there. You're still in a relationship at this time, is that right?
I think
September 97.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
And again in September, the 9th of September 97, behind tab B18, continued reporting on the 100 days of action preparation. The report says that Monica...
I haven't got anything on my screen, by the way. Am I supposed to have?
We can bring it
no,
up.
You
it
don't
was
have
just,
to. Just carry on.
Quick
No,
one,
it's
but,
fine. Carry on.
You can bring it up for if
no,
you...
it was just more in case you thought I had.
The report says that Monica and John Jordan appear to be the main organisers. Is that fair?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
John Jordan, is that the same as Jay Jordan?
Yeah.
Notably, in his witness statement, paragraph 82 on page 23, I don't need to bring it up, but he effectively says that he and you were friends. Is that right?
Yeah, we kind of knew each other.
And he knew of your relationship with Boiling.
Yeah.
And he was surprised because what he says is Monica was a brilliant, politically intellectual, sharp person, and Boiling gave the impression of not being interested in politics. Is that the impression Boiling gave you, that he was not so interested in politics as much as you were?
Sorry, I'm just still digesting that. We're all very different, aren't we? And I think I take people at face value. So for me, one of the things that I took at face value of Jim was his being a vegan. I'm quite easily duped. I'm quite naive. I take people at face value. So that had quite a big impact on... He's a vegan, he hunts up Jim, so he must be in the same place. I think what Jay was referring to is that I'm good at being passionate and ranting, but I'm not very good at organising. And I think that kind of came out in that whole Strike Oil thing, because I wanted to take something forward. I wanted to do something. And I wanted to have the ideas and everything, but I wasn't actually very good at the practical thing, which I didn't necessarily know. I wasn't that conscious about it at the time.
Did Boiling help you with organising the Strike Oil action?
He was one of the people... He's by himself on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... 13 on my cipher list, page 54, page 59. Yeah. He was... Boiling had really infiltrated this person as a friend. They were very close. Me and this person were very, very different. So this person's like middle class, it's like very on it, very switched on activist. Really good activist, really switched on. But he wasn't in favour of the Strike Oil thing. And I remember Boiling once said that he wasn't going to tell me what this person, privacy, thought about the strike oil thing because he was keeping his confidence, which is quite funny, ironically. So I think it was just I was trying to make something happen with Jay, but there wasn't really an impetus for it at the time. So I was kind of plugging away at a dead cause, I think. But it did happen at the end, but in a different form.
Thank you. So that might be a good time to break for lunch.
Certainly. We'll resume a minute or two after 2.